Interface Video presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and the Frankie Smith Funeral Home.
Hello friends, and welcome to Fairfield Today. I'm your host, Paul Jassy. Thank you for joining us as we begin today's taping. It's a little overcast, a bit windy out there, but kind of a typical spring day in Ohio. We know maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but somewhere down the line, a week away, the weather's going to get good. You still need to cover your flowers probably. Maybe you shouldn't have planted them already. Maybe that's something you shouldn't have done yet, but there still may be some cold weather coming here in central Ohio. But we know spring is coming, and all the activity will be focused behind us at the gazebo and then downtown. Every weekend there's things going on with DDL, with the festival, with just tons of things happening downtown Lancaster. So we're all excited about that. We'll be covering much of that as the spring and summer Tuesdays roll around here on Fairfield Today. In a few minutes, we're going to be talking to a young lady from the YMCA, and she'll be talking about a new Parkinson's program that she has started. Anita Morehart is her name. She's the head of the programs down there. We'll talk to her in the second half of the show today as we telecast here from Fairfield Federal. But we're going to open up our show today with a gentleman that, friend of mine, golly, I can't remember how long we've known each other. Well over 20 years, probably.
Closer to 40 years,
wow.
Actually, Paul.
Well, that's well over 20.
We moved here about 37 years ago.
It was in the house that was by us.
Yes.
That's it. Well, I just knew him as a neighbor, so those many years, and I knew he had this drug connection, and I say that lovingly, not in a bad way. Because now Orman Hall, who is my guest today, has turned out to be one of the really shining lights when people in Fairfield County, when you go to for answers about what is a problem that I mentioned this to him before we started, you can't look at a newspaper, certainly every other day, every third day, but maybe every day. Opiate addiction, the opiate problem we have is tantamount. If we talk to the sheriff, we talk to the police, we talk to the judges who handle that, everybody talks about the opiate addiction. And so I thought I'd have a fellow on that, again, I know personally, who has a tremendous pedigree and a resume in this. It's Orman Hall. And Orman, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here, Paul.
Give us a kind of a thumbnail sketch, a Reader's Digest version of your work in this opiate addiction from maybe when you moved here 40 years ago till now.
Actually, I misspoke. It's been more than 30 years. We moved here in 1989.
Okay.
So I was the director of the Alcohol, Drug, Mental Health Board for 21 years. After that, I had an opportunity to spend 4 years in the governor's cabinet, 2 with the Department of Alcohol and Drug Addiction Services. That merged with the Department of Mental Health, and then 2 years as the governor's chief advisor on opiate addiction, and I retired from there, spent 2 years at the Supreme Court, and now I am working with the high-intensity drug trafficking area, mostly from home.
And in fact, that's an article I cut out from the paper. I guess that's been a couple of weeks ago now, but that high-intensity drug area that you're involved with now. And again, as I talked about in the open, this opiate addiction, it's a real problem. And it doesn't appear we're doing too well in this area.
Well, we certainly have more people dying. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And historically, if you consider what's happened to our society, it's really pretty breathtaking. Here in the state of Ohio, if you go back to the mid-1970s, which you and I remember well, the entire state of Ohio was seeing around 200 deaths per year from an overdose standpoint. In 2015, we saw over 3,000 overdoses. And the vast majority of those overdose deaths were attributable to opiate addiction. So we've seen a dramatic increase in overdose deaths. There is absolutely no doubt about that.
So we've had this dramatic increase in opiate deaths. We've seen at least as dramatic of increase in money spent on fighting this, because now every law enforcement agency, that is their major, probably all their money, most of it goes toward this area, and the people they arrest probably a very high percentage of them somehow are related to drugs. I bet if you go down to the jail, 90% of the people there somehow related to opiates or drugs of some sort. Is it just the ease now of getting these drugs? Are there so many more types of drugs out there? Because everybody's talking about it. Don't do this, don't do that. But I don't know if we're winning this or not.
Well, there is some good news, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. If you look at sort of the progression of what's happened in our society here, around 1995, our physicians were sort of systematically re-educated to the notion that we could use prescription opiates safely to treat chronic pain. And what we saw here in the state of Ohio is this phenomenal increase in the use of prescription opiates. We went from about 11,000 grams per 100,000 population, which would be equivalent to everybody in our state receiving 15 Vicodin in 1 year, to 90,000 grams per 100,000 population. That's the equivalent of everybody in our state receiving 120 5-milligram Vicodin. And the ensuing period was 1997 through 2011. The statistical relationship, the correlation between the increase in dosing and the increase in overdose deaths is virtually 1-to-1. There's a 0.97 correlation between the increase in dosing and the increase in deaths. We have essentially been through 3 phases in the opiate epidemic. That first and longest phase was people becoming addicted to prescription opiates. The second phase, when we began to notice that people were becoming addicted, we started to clamp down. Those people who were addicted that we didn't adequately treat, they moved to heroin. Heroin is really inexpensive. A standard dose of heroin, which is equivalent to about 100 milligrams, is $10. It is 1/10 the expense of prescription opiates. So there's this natural progression, and what we saw was this significant uptick in deaths attributable to opiates when we saw the transition from prescription opiates to heroin. And this third phase, which is even more lethal, is the transition away from heroin to fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is incredibly lethal and is claiming significantly more lives than heroin. It is really a very tragic situation.
When I hear you say something like addiction to prescriptions, I guess I think of that as I go to a doctor, I have a knee I've had worked on, he gives me some prescriptions to do that, and then somehow I get addicted. Is that the progression, or is it more of an illegal way it's done?
Well, it's a little bit of both. There are people that have predisposition to become dependent on opioids. And we don't know with any degree of assurance who those people are, but a significant portion of our population. We're exposing vast numbers of people who are potentially, who could potentially become addicted to opioids, to this drug. And then we have so many of these medications in the environment. And for the longest period of time, many people thought that they were a safe high because doctors were prescribing them. So it's a little bit of both. It's those people who were prescribed medications that were becoming addicted, and then those people who had access to them because they had family members that were prescribed. What we know is that historically, 80% of those people in treatment for heroin addiction started on prescription opiates, either because of a medical issue or because they had access to them because of a family member or friend.
Whether it's been Dave Phelan, Dave Bailey when he was still the police chief, Dave Tremor when Dave had the drug court across the street here, anybody I've talked to in this law enforcement area that deals in opiates and drugs, and I think I even asked this of you years ago when you were on the show, is marijuana the gateway drug? And beyond that, there's a lot of push to not make, at some level, a jailable offense that, well, we'll just kind of turn a blind eye, pay a fine, and move on. Your thoughts on any of that?
Let me say first off that I am not in favor of legally sanctioned recreational use of marijuana. I think that I think it's a bad thing. I think there is some mixed scientific data around how harmful it is, but what we do know at this point is that a lot of the THC product that's on the street is dramatically more powerful.
I've heard that
than what we saw 10, 20, 30 years ago. I don't think that I don't think we should criminalize people that are struggling with marijuana use. I think we need to look for ways to help people that are struggling with all forms of drug abuse and to not put them in jail or prison.
We've seen some states now legalize for different levels of marijuana use. Do you think we're going to see down the road repercussions from that? Well, we will, but do you think they'll be good or bad?
Well, my suspicion is that they're not going to be good. I mean, we know from what's going on in Colorado that there are more impaired drivers on the road due to marijuana use. And there is also some scientific evidence that would suggest that people who frequently use marijuana, that it impairs their intellect, and that those people, again, who are using frequently, that are predisposed towards schizophrenia may have a higher percentage of those people may actually develop schizophrenia. So there are some negative outcomes here that I think that we need to be cautious about.
Speaking with Orman Hall, Orman is an opiate and addiction specialist, got his start here in Lancaster and Fairfield County, was on the governor's cabinet at that level to talk about that. The Supreme Court, he helped them with this. Ohio now is one of these states that you can see moving in that direction, as many states are. They keep coming back, and eventually I liken it to gambling. Eventually they keep coming back, and sooner or later they get enough people, there's enough money thrown at it that it sticks. Ohio seems to be heading in that direction. Your thoughts on that for the Buckeye State? Probably the same as any other state.
Well, yes, I do think that this most recent move is somewhat unfortunate. It sort of creates the impression that marijuana is not a dangerous substance. And what we do know in general is that when perceived harm of a mood-altering substance, when the perceived harm of that substance goes down, use goes up. In much the same way that the perceived harm of prescription opiates went down in the 90s and early 2000s, and we saw opiate use go up. We're seeing those kind of trends with marijuana now.
I've got a couple of minutes left. Orman, earlier in the show you talked about whether there's some good news out there. I hope there is some good news.
Well, there's no good news on the overdose death front. We're going to see overdoses climb for the next couple of years, unfortunately. But the good news is here in the state of Ohio, actually here in Fairfield County, in 2004, the first year that we did our youth survey, 29% of high school seniors indicated that they had used prescription drugs for a non-medical purpose. 29%. We noted that in a press release because it was 4 percentage points higher than national average. If you move forward to 2016, only 5% of our high school seniors indicated that they have ever used prescription drugs for a non-medical purpose. So that is a 24% decrease. Similar trends around the country, but not as pronounced as Fairfield County. So I believe that because of the really good work that we've done here in our community around educating adolescents that prescription opiates are dangerous, that we have seen a significant fall off, a significant decline in the recreational use of prescription drugs, and that's a good thing.
Well, we need a little good news to wrap it up.
Orman,
thank you. I always say you're doing the Lord's work out there. I mean, you've got your hands full, and I guess it's job security every day. You know you're going to get into something out there, but with good people like you and Dave Phelan and Judge Fields now, who heads up the drug court, keep getting the word out there. I guess that's it. Just keep extolling the bad things about that, and just keep pushing along. Thank you, Orman.
Thanks, Paul.
Orman Hall has been our guest today, and we'll be back on Fairfield Today in just a moment. Welcome back to Fairfield Today. Thank Orman Hall, my friend, for coming on talking about opiate addiction, a very, just a difficult program to talk about the things that are going on. We're going to lighten it up a little bit here, talk about some serious issues, but we'll have a young lady on from the Family Y, and we'll talk about some programs they've got going on down there. But I wanted to mention the good folks here at Fairfield Federal, and I wanted to talk about their internet banking capability. If that's the buzz right now. It no longer, you don't have a savings book so much anymore where you walk in, give it to a teller, where I did perhaps as I was a kid, Christmas Club, those things are out there, but everything now is electronically on a phone, on a device, on your computer, and certainly here at Fairfield Federal, if you're looking to maybe get involved more into that, they can pretty much do all of that here. I was just looking at some of the things they do. You can do your online bill payments with that. You can transfer between accounts. You can view your accounts, view your history, things that have gone on in your past. That's capable. You can set up alerts like internet ID theft is a big deal right now. They can keep you safe in that area. You can ask them about that. And you can view your check images on there, some things that every now and then somebody needs to see a check. You can do that too. So internet banking, certainly a big deal now here at Fairfield Federal. I'd suggest going at fairfieldfederal.com. All the information, the locations, the ATMs, the people, local folks making decisions. That's the place to go to make your money decisions, fairfieldfederal.com. As I gave her a plug earlier, Anita Morehart is with us. Anita, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Anita is the wellness director at the Robert K. Fox Family Y, somebody that I'm a big proponent of. I was a member of the Y when they built that, probably back in the 50s. I lived on the west side, not maybe a mile from where the Y is now, and was in junior high over there and through high school, and I'm a member today. It's just a wonderful facility, and I've seen a lot of directors there, but and now there seems to be some more. Maybe as I'm older, I see more of a program for older people there. Mm-hmm. Maybe as a kid, I thought it was just open gym for basketball, and that's all we did over there. But golly, there's a whole world there now of programs that are for adults.
We start at 6 months and go up over 100 years old. So, yeah.
Well, as I mentioned, Anita is the wellness director, and we'll get to what that means and how that works at the Y. But give us a little background on you. What got you to this point of working for our Family Y?
I moved to Lancaster in 1992. I was a stay-at-home mom. Didn't know anyone here, so someone suggested I check out the Lancaster YMCA, so I joined in 1992 as a member, and then soon after that, one of the instructors was leaving the Y, and I was asked if I'd be interested in picking up the class that I was taking as a student. So I soon became the instructor, and then I just started adding other classes to my schedule, becoming more educated through the Y with their certification processes. Became a personal trainer. Done that for about 13 years.
Okay.
So I just kind of added. Randy Curtis, who was our wellness director for years.
Randy well.
He recently retired,
Yep.
and the job came up for wellness director, and I went for it.
One of the reasons I had Anita on, and again, we have Mike Lieber on, we talk about so many great programs down there at the Family. Again, big proponent. I really like the Y. We're fortunate to have them here in our town. But we had a family member that needed some help in the area of Parkinson's. And somehow I got wind of a program that the Y was going to start, and it turned out to be Anita was going to run that program. So I actually called her and got some information on it. That program is now, I guess, in its second or third week as we tape this program, second week, I guess. And you've got a few members in the class, 11 or 12, I guess. And I guess the program you wanted to get going is now really steamrolling along.
It is our pilot program. It is called Delay the Disease. It's the #1 exercise program in the country for people with Parkinson's.
Okay.
So it's up through Ohio Health, up at Riverside. And when we went for the certification process, we actually worked with the man who brought these exercises about, worked with him for a couple days, and got a good sense of what this was all about. Decided that this was the way I definitely wanted to go. They run classes up at Riverside and around Columbus everywhere. When I told her we were from Fairfield County, she said, "Thank you. They have been waiting for you." And Fairfield County, I like to hear that too. So yes, this definitely is our program. our pilot program, I'm sorry. And it's going really, really well.
So it started maybe a week ago as we taped this program,
Yes.
and it's on a couple days a week, Tuesday, Thursdays,
Tuesdays
couple
and
of hours.
Thursdays, 1 hour, 1 to 2.
Okay, so today is, as we tape the program, the second week is going. You've got, did I hear 11?
I have 11.
11 people in there, and I'm sure the first program was kind of a get-to-know program, maybe a little bit kind of talk about, because I know there are different types of Parkinson's. I know that the kind I was always familiar with was more the shaking kind, but when I saw our family member, he had some of that, but there were different characteristics that he showed, the way he walked, the way he kind of carried himself. It took him a long time to diagnose that as Parkinson's. They looked at a lot of things but didn't come up with that, but when they did, he immediately started getting better. So the program you're going to have now, this pilot program, is to work with people with all these problems, and you work with them in a lot of different ways.
And they're different levels. There's like an exercise that we call them level 1 through 5.
Okay.
Okay, so Parkinson's is a very gray disease. That's what I'm learning with the intakes when people come in to talk to me about being part of my program. No, not everybody has the same symptoms. It's all very different, but there is something that holds them all together in that same breath also. So we are working all different levels in this Parkinson's group. So we have to make sure we're reaching our level 1s as well as our level 4s that we have in there. It's going pretty well. Everybody, after their first class, we asked how things went, and they said they felt looser, they felt better. We do Parkinson's-specific exercises. We want them to make movements bigger. We want their voices louder. We want rotations exaggerated, and we want to work on their balance. We need to really challenge their balance. So, we start with a wake-up call, and that's just kind of using all 4 of those things we just talked about. And then we go into balance work, and like I said, all different levels of balance work. And we're trying to link balance work to a habit. So we're asking them every day as they're making coffee or waiting for their toast to pop, to work on some of these exercises as homework. It takes about 8 weeks to make it a habit. So with daily practice, it will get better. We move on to a cardio section. We get their heart rates moving. And then we go into some work, because at that point, they call it stickiness. David Zid, who is the creator of the exercises, stickiness. You get that heart rate up, you get those endorphins moving in their brains, they're ready to do some challenging work. So one thing we have learned with Parkinson's is they teach themselves to walk smaller. They stop their arm swing.
Yes.
They start speaking much softer. They don't even realize that they're doing this. So after we do their cardio, we do practice big steps of walking with big arm swings. And then they have to count as loud as they can at the same time. And that's what we're trying to get them to stick with at that moment, is taking bigger steps, using those arms.
Trying to get back to the person perhaps they once were.
Yes. And I will say arm swing, but until I get in front and I start exaggerating my arm swing, their arms start to move. They don't realize that they're not moving it.
Right.
So with that practice, they practice that too as homework through the class. So, it's just, we do a lot of different activities, but it's all specific to their needs.
Now, is this all done, I don't know where you meet, maybe in the offices that are on the second floor up there, I'm not sure where you meet, but is it all done in a classroom scenario? Will you eventually get to any pool things? Will you go to the room upstairs where all the exercise equipment is, or is it all done in a classroom setting?
Right now, we are all in the Martin's gym at the Y with the equipment, because there's several different pieces of equipment that we incorporate into this workout. But it's very structured through Delay the Disease. They give you the 12-week program they want you to start with. They want you to start off strong. So they send it to me. I have to look it up, make sure I know what we're doing, and we stick with it for that 12 weeks. So there's not a lot of guesswork right now.
Okay.
As we get more comfortable as instructors and coaches, we're going to start moving you around the Y.
Is there a way you determine from week 1 through how many weeks?
12.
Through the 12th week, is the way I'm sure you would look at each person differently, how each person has handled those 12 weeks, but is there a way you can decide whether it's been successful or not successful for all these people? Do you go with what they say, or do you look at how they move at the end? Is that how you determine that?
I think it's a combination of everything together.
Okay.
I think with what they're telling us and what we're seeing them do, that combination tells us, first of all, just after one class, they came back very happy. It did something up here before it did anything else for their body. They were very happy to see each other. It's not something that, like the people in our class, they don't know a lot of people with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
So now they have a group. So with this exercise class, they're going to develop a support system. And at some point, they'll start talking about doctor's appointments and be support systems, because they just don't know a lot of people. I have a 42-year-old to someone in their 80s in this same class. So they're looking for some camaraderie, I think.
That was going to be,
with this
I think my
disease.
next question was, what I've noticed in my family members, I've noticed he's sort of gotten a little out of the loop. He's kind of much more to himself, doesn't get out there. He was always a happy-go-lucky guy, enjoyed being around. That's not the case now. So I would imagine socialization in this
Huge.
class is a big deal.
Huge.
Yeah.
And your family member, he has a huge personality, and it turned on right when he was in that group. And I mean, that first
Just given that
day,
opportunity to do it.
they have that name tag on. Everybody has to wear name tags for a while, so they know everybody that's in there. But they've already, in 2 classes, they sit next to the same person that they sat next to Monday. Things will change like that, but it was just the social aspect was really great to see. And then after just 2 classes, a man who has not been able to get out of a chair by himself, after being shown how to sit and stand through their practice, stood up by himself.
How breathtaking is that for you to see that?
I was pretty excited on the
Yeah.
inside and outside.
Yeah, I can imagine. Golly, the time gets away so quickly when you're on a great subject like this, but I guarantee we'll have you back. We'll talk about
Okay.
this and many other things that you do at the Y. Anita Moorhart, who is the wellness director, just thanks for doing what you do down there. Obviously, this is a great pilot program. If somebody wanted to get more information on it, maybe for the next round when you'll be doing that, how is best to contact you?
Call the Y, 740-654-0616. My extension is 247, so give me a call, Anita Moorhart at the Y, and I'll give you a call back and I'll give you those details.
Well, great. It's a good pilot program. We think it could have long-reaching effects, and we know there are so many people with this in the county that could be touched in a positive way by this.
And I just want people with Parkinson's to know it's never too late to start to exercise, and it's never too early. So give me a call if you want more info.
Wellness Director Anita Moorhart from the Robert K. Fox Family Y. Thank you for being with us, Anita. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's our show on Fairfield Today.
Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and the Frankie Smith Funeral Home.